And hello, my name is Martin, and today what we're going to do is we're going to attach the damage code to the projectiles and make sure that the projectiles themselves disappear or are destroyed upon touching us, so then that way they can't bounce and hit us again. And we'll apply this to two characters. We'll apply it to the shoot rotating character, and then we'll also apply it to the Murdoch character, the one that we've been building, so that we can get them to. So we'll have a roaming chase shooting character and a rotating shooting character with damage code when we finish with this tutorial. So let's start with the first one, which is the shooting rotating enemy. So I'm going to double click on that. Now, up until this point, we have added the damage code to pawns like the mine and the homing missile, and we have also added it to a character like the statue. Or the moving statue. But in this case, we do have a character, but we don't want to assign the damage code to the character. We actually want to assign it to the ball. We want to assign it to the projectile. So we're going to double click on the projectile, and this is actually where we're going to add that code in. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to add a capsule component just like we've done with all the other ones. So I'm going to type in collision, and because this is a sphere, I'll go ahead and use sphere, and let's go ahead and rename this like we've done all the other ones. First person character underscore collision. At this point, this should feel like muscle memory. This is the third time or fourth time that we're doing this. So we're going to select this and go down to the collision settings. We're going to switch this over to custom. We're going to leave it on a world dynamic. We'll switch it to query enabled. We'll put everything to ignore except for the pawn. The other thing that would have a collision setting would be the collision component. Right now it's labeled to a projectile, which is what we want. And the mesh or the actual mesh is set to no collision, so we don't have to worry about that one. That's not doing anything. But this one does interact with some stuff. So let's see, it's labeled as a projectile. We're basically going to get it to block everything except for things called pawns. So it doesn't hit. It ignores pawns. Why would it ignore pawns? Because we're dealing with pawns over here. So we're getting this one to ignore the pawn. It's going to block everything else, which means that it will create the overlap event for this. And then if it hits us with this, it is going to create the overlap effect for the pawn. So good. So now what we need to do is just go into the viewport and make sure that the collision is indeed larger than the capsule or the other one. So this is the collision component. This is the sphere, and this is the other one. That seems maybe a bit too big. Let's go in and make that just a little bit smaller. Remember though that I still want it larger than the other two circles. So let's go ahead and hit compile and save. Let's go back to the event graph, and here we're going to paste the same code. So again, I'm going to go back to smime. This time I do want to cast it to the player. I want to apply the damage. I do actually want it to destroy all these other components. So I'm going to copy it up until this point. I don't need it turning into a sprite. I don't need it turning into something that explodes. So we'll just grab this part. We'll hit Control C to copy. We'll go to the shoot rotate enemy projectile. We will hit Control V, which will then paste that code in. And again, with the new collision, the collision circle that we created, or the collision sphere that we created, we want to select it, right click, and we want to add the event, which is the collision on begin overlap. Once we've got that, we'll select that and add it to it. Since this is going to be constantly being shot at us a lot, we'll leave the base damage at 1. So then that way they have to hit us 100 times. If we have 100% or 100 points in health, they will have to hit us 100 times to knock us all the way out. And since we don't have it going to that, we can take the sequence off and just have it go straight to the destroy. Now, a lot of the stuff here doesn't exist, so we're going to go ahead and delete those because they were copied over. And we will now add these. So we'll grab the collision component, we'll add the sphere, we will add that one, okay, and let's go ahead and connect all of those. All right, so basically, if this thing hits anything else, it'll bounce. If it hits us, it'll destroy itself. Okay, and also cause us 1 point in damage. So let's go ahead and hit compile and save. And what I'm going to show you is that we will be able to walk up to the enemy and touch the turret, the thing that is shooting at us, but that won't cause us damage. The only thing that will cause us damage will be the projectiles. So if everything is saved, we'll go ahead and demo this. So I'll grab one of these and put them out on the floor. Let's go ahead and rotate this so that it's not looking directly at us, so we can test to make sure that we indeed can run into it without it causing us any damage. Okay, so as you can see, I can run into it. The object itself doesn't cause me any damage, but if I get in front of it and the balls start hitting me, you will see that I am indeed getting 1% damage for each one of the balls that are hitting me. Now if I deflect the balls, you'll see that they don't get to me and they don't affect me, right? So when my projectile hits them, they don't cause me damage. Let's see also if I can maybe hide behind something. Okay, so the ball was shot, it hit other things, but it didn't hit me, and so thus I'm not taking damage from that, right? Okay, fantastic. So we now have a projectile coming from the rotating enemy, which is doing that. So now let's get this done on for the Murdoch character. So let's go to where the Murdoch character is. Okay, and remember, this is not going to be on the character itself, it's going to be on their projectile. So let's double click into the projectile. At this point, we should still have that code in the clipboard, so we should be able to hit Control V and paste it. The things that we will need to change will be those because they don't exist anymore. We don't need it on the sequence. It can just go straight into the destroy the component. And from there, we will need to add a component, which will be the collision, and we'll use the sphere collision. We will call this first person character underscore collision, so we know what it's doing. We will select it, right click, and add event collision upon impact. We'll go ahead and tidy that up for the front end. We will make this, let's say we'll make this one 2%. Say this guy hits harder. Okay, and then on the back end, on the destroy components, what we'll want to do is grab anything that will be part of the projectile and make sure that it indeed does get destroyed when it makes contact with us. Okay, and not with anything else. And you notice from the example earlier that it was bouncing, so it was hitting the ground, which was something. It was the ground's labeled as a world static or something. So it definitely was able to bounce, but it did not destroy unless it bounced and hit one of us. Okay, so that is now ready. We can go ahead and hit compile and save. And now the Murdoch character should be shooting projectiles that will cause us damage. Okay, so I will wait for them to come to me. And it is, oh, you know what we forgot to do? We forgot to do the collision settings. So let's go back to the Murdoch projectile. Let's go to this part itself. It is indeed larger than the circle. I don't need it to be that much larger, so we'll go ahead and size it down just a little bit. Okay, we'll hit compile. With it still selected, we'll scroll down and look at its collision settings in the details panel. We are going to make it a custom. We're going to enable all the collisions. We'll leave it as a world dynamic. We will tell it to ignore everything except for overlapping the pawn. Okay, we'll hit compile. Now we need to look at the other thing that has collision settings, which is this one. This one is labeled as a projectile. It will ignore the pawn and it'll block everything else. Shpere, again, remember, had no collisions. So now that that's there, it will generate an overlap, and let's hit compile and save, and hopefully now this will cause its damage. Okay, let's see what the Murdoch character is actually shooting. So let me delete this one. Let me add the one we were working on. Just want to make sure that we are indeed using the right character. So let's turn that around. And let's move this. So the only other thing could be is that this character is not shooting the right ammunition. So let's see the shoot projectile. And it is indeed not shooting the right ammunition. So this would be Murdoch projectile. So now it should be shooting the right ammunition at us. Compile and save. And let's push play this time. Okay, so we're going to run out. And we're going to try to get shot. Okay, so the balls are hitting us. You can see that they're causing 2% damage roughly each time that they hit us. So now we have a character that is chasing us, that causes us damage. But when we run into them, that doesn't. Obviously, he was still shooting at me. And now that if I shoot him, and there it is. Fantastic. So now we have both a rotating character that can shoot at you with the projectile, your roam, chase, shoot character, with their projectile. So basically it's about the projectile. Now if you did want to later like have the Murdoch character do some type of a melee action when they walk up to you, that's totally up to you. You will have to figure out how to do that, but at this point you now have a character. You can have it where the character itself causes you damage when they run into you, or you can have it to where the projectile is causing damage when it hits you and not when it hits other things, right? Just when it hits you as the pawn. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.